What's up, y'all? It's your boy Sean P back again. And I told you I'd be back really quick, following up off of the my Raekwon album review of Emperor's New Clothing. Definitely check that review out. Definitely check that album out, Emperor's New Clothing. So now I want to focus on one of the top tracks off of there, which is the Nas feature, Omerta, where the original version of this is fire. Definitely check that out. I think it's maybe the top track on there. Nas's feature on this is contender for feature verse of the year. Now I know Tyler the Creator is up there. Kendrick Lamar is probably going to take it home with his feature verse on Whips and Chains, but I think Nas kind of stole the show on this version of Omerta, the album version. So definitely check that out, or Omerta on the Raekwon album, Emperor's New Clothing. But there's a twist to this. So I'm going to back up a little bit. Of course, Jim Jones has went on a media campaign against Nas, basically saying that Nas is not as relevant as he is to the current hip hop culture. You know what I mean? He's went on a rant with younger men, saying that people listen to Jim Jones. Jim Jones has more influence on younger people or what have you. And then Jim Jones did the media circuit, a podcast from Club Shay Shay to Jada and Joe, and he's got a lot of criticism for coming at Nas. So this morning popped up a song saying Nas, Jim Jones, diss Omerta. And I said, well, this wasn't on the album as I pulled this up. And I said, well, what's going on with this, right? And basically I said, I don't know why they didn't put this version on the album. And I don't think as a verse, this is a better verse than the original Omerta on the album, but it was a leaked verse. I think it was the alternate verse that Nas had. So I'm doing my research here, and I'm trying to say, is this AI? Is this confirmed by Nas or what have you? Because it got leaked. So apparently Nas did a alternative verse. He did two verses for Omerta, and this is what came out. So I'm going to play a quick snippet of this. I hope I don't get flagged of some of the lyrics on here. So let's just go with it.
All these suckers are gutless. Get a little money and turn into Uncle Ruckus. This ain't a super cartoon, no. I'm the truth, but you know. Now you feel like you Anthony Supply, trope you not though. Money bought you some gunzo. I tell it straighter than a hot comb. You a knockoff, you not from the cloth. Scary nigga, my natural instinct is tell it real and let it sink.
Okay.
I had to think quick and not let the weak win. Got smoke for me, beef with yourself. I be cheap and too hard to notice every week. It be somebody else. Soon as my name's mentioned, lames are offended. If words hurt you with what.
All right, let me do a pause real quick.
Wasn't intended, but when it comes to my words, if I said it, I meant it. If the shoe fits, this one is for you, bitch. You got me confused with your fabricated form of delusion. You're dusty, need to be bitch smacked. Face on the stump, feet on concrete.
Okay, so I'm going to play enough of that. I don't want to get banged for a copyright infringement, but Nas has some venom on there. And you could only assume he's talking about one person, one Jim Jones, with that track. You know what I mean? So kind of went under the radar. And if Nas did it this way, I kind of like this. I kind of like how he did it because they put out the original version, and then the day after the album drops, he puts out an alternate verse, which is definitely aimed at somebody, and one could only think it's aimed at Jim Jones. And it makes sense because I'm thinking the track list was done, and this track, the original Omerta, was done probably, months in advance to get the album put together and cleared. But this was probably done last minute in the recent months of Nas just shooting back. So First of all, I mean, you heard the bars. The bars is fire. So what I want to know is, what does this mean after this? Because I said in my previous podcast, and when I went on with Torture Chamber and Funeral Man, that I don't think Nas was going to respond, and really he shouldn't pay Jim Jones any mind. But Nas is an MC in the end of the day, and he knows what this thing is about. And Jim Jones has been trolling Nas for the better part of 20 years. This goes back to 2005. So this was definitely warranted. It's more of a warning shot, but he let him know, like he let Jim Jones know what place he's in and what place Nas is in. So the question is, does Jim Jones respond to this? That's the interesting part. And I wonder what's going to happen now if Jimmy is going to take this, because obviously he wants to go viral so bad, and do a rebuttal to this song. Now, again, this is still not confirmed that this is a Nas song, but I could just listen to that. That's not AI. You know what I mean? That's definitely it's definitely Nas. So you could say, well, it's not about Jim Jones, but I mean, just put the dominoes together. Why would Nas do an alternate verse or something where he's clearly speaking disrespectful about somebody that disrespected him? I mean, you just got to do the math. This has to be a real Jim Jones diss. And if that's the case, buckle up. You know what I mean? Buckle up. And this is what it's about. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you had some things to say. You want to go viral. You know, Jim Jones, you think you're more part of the culture than Nas is. All right. So Nas is giving him a spanking and letting him know, get in your fucking place, bro. You don't belong in this circle. You don't belong in this conversation. There's a reason why you're on where Nas is on an album with legends and you're not on this album. You know what I mean? Even though I will say Jim Jones was on Shaolin versus Wu-Tang. But nevertheless, you know what I mean? He had to put Jim Jones in his place. You know what I mean? And I like that. You know what I mean? The one thing about Nas, about Jay-Z, about all the GOATs, they're not going to let somebody slide on disrespect. Even Biggie when he was alive. Everybody that came on at them, they addressed in their way on their time. And I like the way Nas did this. And he did it kind of subtly by putting out a leaked verse that didn't make the album. Now we'll see where it goes from here. Again, it's unconfirmed, but it definitely sounds like Nas. It definitely sounds like he came back at Jim Jones on this. But as far as the original Omerta, definitely check that out. Strongest cut on the track. And hip hop is back, y'all. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I was starting to have my doubts about hip hop until the Clips rollout started. You know what I mean? I really thought that hip hop was in a bad place with, all of the trash, ratchet female hip hop that's going on, disrespectful female hip hop. Of course, you got the Drake and Kendrick war, but how long can they keep going back and forth? You know what I mean? And I think you had some energy with the Joey Badass versus West Coast and TDE conflict, but you really didn't have the substance of the top level albums. But I tell you what, it's almost like July 11th last week is real hip hop Independence Day, because after this, you had Raekwon dropping this week. Freddie Gibbs and Alchemist dropped a single, and Alfredo is dropping next week. Tyler, the Creator, is dropping on Monday. Joey Badass just dropped a track, and he's now rumored to come out on August 1st, where I got some things to say about that. I'll get to his track later. But real hip-hop and real spitters are back. You know what I mean? Nas got more coming in the Legend Has It series. I think De La Soul is coming up. I want to say Ghostface Killer's coming up. How about that? Two dope to fire albums from Wu-Tang on Mass Appeal. Just think about that, because Ghostface is coming now with it out, and Nas is going to have a verse on every one of these. You know what I mean? Real hip hop is back, yo. I'm really energized. Like, me as a culture hip hop fan, I am part of the culture. You know, grew up in the golden era, grew up in the greatest era of hip hop, which was probably 1990 to about 2005. Like, I lived through that. I'm energized about hip hop again. Like, I'm I'm checking Spotify now to see who dropped a dope project again. You know, which for a long time, outside of maybe Kendrick Lamar and a couple of other artists, I really haven't been Kendrick, maybe Freddie Gibbs. You know, I really haven't been into. So I'm really energized, y'all, and it's only going to get better. I can't wait for next week. You know, Alfredo 2 drops, and I'm just starting to sink my teeth into this Raekwon project, which is pretty dope. But anyway, check out this Nas Perceived Jim Jones disc. Just pull it up on YouTube. Say Nas Jim Jones. It's going to come up. Lost Verse Omerta. Check out Raekwon and Nas, the original Omerta, and check out Raekwon, A New Emperor's New Clothing. That's out now on Spotify. So definitely do that. With that, some new content will be coming up. You know, I'm gonna try and get to y'all probably in the next couple of days or so. Trying to work something out with Torture Chamber. We have a lot of on a real long pod, pretty long pod. I want to talk about a follow up to YMCMB and their downfall. You know, Nicki, Drake, and Wayne. So we're working on that. But other than that, enjoy the rest of y'all Saturday afternoon, and I'll get back to y'all soon. All right, peace.